All righty, there we go. I thought maybe today I would give you a very quick update on the water shortage. I think that's probably the most topical thing in front of everybody here. And I thought maybe we could do that in a relatively quick way. Doug knows he spent a day with us recently going through the water system. So this is not a topic that is easy to cover in 5 minutes, but I'm going to give you a little, I'll give you a little forecast of where we are and what we're doing about it. So Loch Lomond is right now it's about 23 feet below full. It's about a little bit less than 60%. What we're always worried about with Loch Lomond is another dry year after this one. And we know that about a third of the customers, residential customers mostly, who are with allocations are struggling to meet the stay within their allocation. And that is not because they're bad citizens. It's because we have a really, really conserving community and we're asking them to do more, and it's hard. So our problem really is this issue associated with limited storage. We do have some other issues, a lot of supply variability, I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. We do make a big commitment to maintaining fish flows in all of our sources. So that's a huge commitment that's very aligned with our sort of environmental and conservation oriented population and the value system here. We have a threat of seawater intrusion in our groundwater resources that we're managing collaboratively with a lot of other agencies. And I think we're doing pretty well about that, but it does, constrain our operation, at least in the near term. But of these, really the limited storage that we have in Loch Lomond, which is our only reservoir, is really the key problem. And conservation alone cannot solve this problem. So it's a huge issue. We can't get there by just doing less with, use less. I'm looking for my, there we go. So I want to talk to you a little bit while we're talking about variability about just the last 9 or 10 years of the water supply. We do this thing where we track the total annual discharge of the San Lorenzo River system. And you can see that since 2009, we've had, many dry years, like it seems like one every other one. We've only had 2 normal years, and we've had 2 really wet years. And the problem, and we've had a number of critically dry ones, 2014 was one, but the real problem is when you get this situation. You get a dry followed by a critically dry. This year is a critically dry year. That's like the 4th driest year on record, and our records go back nearly 100 years. So this is a big deal for us because it particularly challenges our lack of carryover storage in our single reservoir. So I want to tell you sort of what happens if we add a 3rd dry year after these various ones. We're not predicting any of these are going to happen, but we're looking at what if scenarios in terms of total reservoir volume. And you can see that in 1977, which is our worst year on record, we get down to about 10%. That's not a good place for us to be. The 2014 is the next driest year. 77 is another dry year in this sort of 76. I chose these as examples of ones where there's sort of 15,000 acre feet of discharge, 20,000 acre feet of discharge, and about 25,000. And the only one that really sort of helps us is that even all still critically dry, but has about almost 30,000 acre feet of critically dry storage. So it doesn't have to rain like hell to get us this, but it has to rain a lot more than it has this last winter or the winter before, for that matter. So that's kind of, forecasting, and it helps us to really focus our attention on what we're trying to do in the short term and in the long term to solve the problem. So the problem we're solving is actively exploring aquifer storage and recovery, ASR, in either the Mid-County Groundwater Basin in the Soquel-Aptos area that we share with them through Live Oak, or in the Santa Margarita Groundwater Basin, which is up in the watershed area of Scotts Valley, San Lorenzo Valley Water District, Boulder Creek, Felton area. And what the idea there is, you take water when it's available in the wintertime, you treat it to drinking water standards, you deliver it to that area, and then you put it in the ground through injection. And then it stays there, and when you go back and get it when you need it for drought supply. The similar kind of a idea is using advanced treated recycled water to do the same kind of thing. That's called indirect potable reuse, or IPR. And we've done a lot of work on both of these. We've been at this looking at, supply projects and the implementation strategies associated with those projects for close to 5 years now. And we're intending to make a recommendation to the community and the city council about what the solution is to our water supply reliability problem next year. And in the short term, we do have some possibilities of, if we have any kind of precip this year that gives us water to put in the ground, of using the test wells, the pilot test wells we've done in the Mid-County Basin to collect some and store some water this winter that will help our situation next year. And then my final slide here is to just sort of give you a little bit of a sense of where things are with respect to some of the sort of criteria that we're looking at to evaluate these alternatives. You can see that the aquifer storage and recovery in the Mid-County groundwater basin is the least expensive of these options. That's because we already have the infrastructure to treat the water and deliver it to those wells, and to take it from those wells and put it back into the system. IPR in the Mid-County groundwater basin uses a different source of supply that has to be treated through an advanced wastewater treatment plant. Soquel Creek is currently working on one of those at the Chanticleer and Soquel Avenue, I believe, on the south side of the freeway. And there is capacity in that plant potentially to expand it that would help us to use some of that advanced treated recycled water in the Mid-County groundwater basin. And it's most expensive to do it up in the Santa Margarita groundwater basin, because we don't have infrastructure to take treated water or treated wastewater up the hill. That project is has a price tag of about $200 million, but it also has the potential to have a number of partners, which would mean it would benefit more than just Santa Cruz. One of the big issues is a diversification of water supply. So more development of surface water that we are currently so dependent on is the least helpful in terms of diversifying our supply. Moving towards advanced treated wastewater or in either one of the basins improves that, because wastewater is a pretty stable commodity regardless of what's going on with the climate and the precip. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. And certainly we're also looking at how to use some of the infrastructure funding at the state and federal level for water projects to see what we can do to solve these problems and get some money in here to help us with the construction of these facilities. And I'm pretty sure that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Rosemary. We do have a few questions. And again, if you have a question for Rosemary, please put it in the Q&A. This will probably just take a couple minutes here. First question, do we know if our groundwater can sustain us if we have another dry year?
The groundwater resource is a lot more resilient to droughts than the surface water resources. They typically experience the effects of drought, and it takes them longer, and then they takes them longer to recover. So the answer to that question is yes. We're pretty sure we can do that with the existing groundwater resources. We do need to plan for sustainability of those over the long haul, and we do have plans in both basins to do that.
Okay, thank you. Next question, and excuse me, you might have answered this at the very end of your presentation, but I got distracted. Is it time to reconsider desalination solution?
So the thing about desal is it's most expensive, but also you don't have to put it someplace. So you don't have to develop, groundwater storage infrastructure or some other place to put it. And there is something to be said for that. But I think at least in the Santa Cruz community, one of these other options is much more likely to be acceptable. I do think over time, we likely are looking at some kind of long-term development of all of these options.
Okay, thank you. And last question, what can and should we be doing besides the normal conservation to help the current water shortage? And I think what they're asking about is just like individually, what should each and every one of us be doing?
Right. So we do have resources on our website that helps you do an audit of your own household use, and to look at those opportunities. There's quite a bit of information that says, shortening your showers is a really good example of one of the kinds of things that you can do. Certainly people are collecting their shower water or their water in their kitchen sink when going from cold to hot, putting it out on their plants. These are the kinds of things that really we've seen people do. But actually a lot of these habits were adopted in the last drought in 2014, 2015, and people have maintained these activities all the way through the many years between that drought and this one. And so as a result, in a lot of ways, it's keep doing what you've been doing is the best thing to do.
Okay, thank you. A couple good questions came in there. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm just going to ask one more. This is from David Apgar. Does the lack of storage infrastructure mean that we shouldn't build more affordable housing, however badly needed?
No, the issue in our situation is supply variability. It's not demand. The demand will grow roughly in 25 years in the projections we have from a very low level, quite a bit lower than any time in history for 50 or 60 years. The demand will grow about 16% in 25 years. The supply variability between the best case scenario under climate change and the worst case scenario is 225%. So it's supply variability that is our problem. And putting off additional affordable housing development it's not going to make the size of the supply project we have to build to give us reliability. It's not going to change the size of that, and probably only marginally will change the cost of it.
Oh, great. Thank you. And good question, David. Okay, well, we are out of time. Rosemary, if you can go in the chat or Q&A, there's a couple other questions if you want to pop in there, but thank you very much. And we will move it on to Doug and Melina.
Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you all.